The night had settled into itself the way grief does, slowly, without asking permission. Frost stitched silver along the edges of the plains, and the wind moved low, careful not to wake the dead. Caleb Hartwell sat alone at his table, the oil lamp turned low, its flame barely breathing. He had learned to keep the light dim. Brightness invited memories, and memories had teeth. Widowhood had taught him how loud silence could be. The empty chair across from him still faced the hearth, as if someone might return to claim it. He hadn't moved it in 5 years. Some absences, he believed, deserved respect. Then came a knock. Not heavy, not demanding, just a small, uncertain tapping that could have been the wind if the wind had hands. Caleb froze. His breath caught halfway to his lungs. No one came to his door after dark. Not since the town decided grief made a man strange. The knock came again, closer this time, more desperate. He stood slowly, joints stiff, heart stirring awake like something long asleep. When he opened the door, the night poured in. A little girl stood there, no older than 7. Her hair was tangled loose around her shoulders, her coat too thin for the cold. She was barefoot, toes red and trembling against the frozen ground. Her eyes, wide, dark, brave in the way only children are when fear has nowhere else to go, lifted to his. "Mister," she whispered, voice shaking like a leaf, "Mama needs help." The words landed soft and sharp all at once. Caleb's first instinct was to step back. His second was to close the door. He felt the old panic rise, the memory of blood on white sheets, of helpless hands, of prayers that went unanswered. He had sworn never again to be the man standing in the room when a woman cried out for help he could not give. But the girl swayed, just slightly, and he saw her knees, scraped raw, purple with cold. Saw the way she stood, as if she'd been practicing bravery for hours. "What's your name?" he asked, though his voice came out rough and used. "Lily," she said. "Please." That was all. No explanation, no begging, just trust, handed to him like something fragile. Caleb turned back into the cabin. For a moment, Lily thought he was sending her away. Her mouth opened, fear rushing forward, but then he reached for his coat. He lit one lantern, then another, until the cabin glowed like it remembered how. "Show me," he said. They walked into the night together. Lily clutched the edge of his coat, as if it were the only solid thing left in the world. The lantern light swayed between them, casting long shadows that stretched and bent across the snow. The land felt awake, watching them pass. Coyotes cried somewhere far off, but Lily didn't flinch. Fear, it seemed, had already used up all its space inside her. "She's real tired," Lily said after a while. "Mama, she keeps saying she's sorry." Caleb swallowed. The words pressed against something tender. They reached a shack at the edge of town, one most folks pretended not to see. The door hung crooked. Smoke barely rose from the chimney. Caleb had passed it 100 times without looking. That, too, settled heavy in his chest. Inside, the air was thick with pain and shame. Eliza Mayfield lay on a narrow bed, sweat dampening her hair, hands clenched in the blanket. When she saw Caleb, her eyes filled, not with relief, but embarrassment. "I didn't know where else to go," she said. "I told Lily not to bother anyone." Caleb didn't answer right away. He set the lantern down gently, as if sudden movements might break the moment. The light revealed what the darkness had hidden, the hollowness in Eliza's cheeks, the way her body carried exhaustion like a second skin. "It's all right," he said finally. "You did right." She shook her head. "They wouldn't help. Said I brought this on myself." He knew who she meant. He had heard the whispers about the man who left, about the baby coming too soon, about a woman who didn't fit neatly into the town's idea of deserving mercy. Caleb had stayed quiet then. Silence had been easier. Now it felt heavier. Outside, a shadow passed the window. Mrs. Odelia Crow, likely, with her sharp eyes and sharper tongue. The town always watched. It just rarely acted. Caleb rolled up his sleeves. He brought water, spoke little, listened more. When Eliza cried out, he didn't flinch. When Lily crawled into the corner, wide-eyed and exhausted, He placed his coat around her shoulders. Hours stretched. Pain came in waves. And through it all, Caleb stayed. Not as a savior, just as a man who refused to leave. Lantern light filled the shack, steady and warm. The past did not vanish, but it loosened its grip just enough for the night to breathe again. The night did not end all at once. It thinned, slowly like breath on cold glass. The lantern burned low, its flame steady in a way that felt almost intentional, as if it, too, understood the importance of staying. Eliza's pain came and went in long, exhausting tides. Caleb kept watch without counting the hours. He offered water when her hand shook. He held still when she needed quiet. There were moments when the room filled with memory. His wife's voice, the way fear had once made him useless. But this time, he did not run from it. He let the ache sit beside him, unafraid. Lily slept curled against the wall, her small fingers twisted in the hem of Caleb's coat. Every so often, she stirred, checking that he was still there. He always was. When the first pale light of morning slipped through the cracks in the boards, a sound broke free that did not belong to pain. A cry, small, fierce, alive. Eliza's breath shattered into sobs. She laughed once, disbelieving, then pressed her face into her hands. Caleb stepped back, chest height. He went outside, letting the cold bite into him until the shaking passed. The sky was pink and wide and forgiving. He hadn't known he was capable of standing through something like that again. He hadn't known the heart could survive being reopened. By the time the town stirred awake, the truth had already begun to travel. It moved faster than kindness usually did. Mrs. Crow came first, standing just outside the doorway, eyes sharp with curiosity disguised as concern. Others followed, men leaning against posts, women whispering behind gloved hands. They looked at Eliza as if she were a lesson gone wrong. They looked at Caleb as if grief had finally made him reckless. No one raised a voice. They didn't have to. Judgment had learned how to speak softly. Caleb stood beside Eliza, not in front of her, beside her. His presence said what words did not. She was not alone, and she was not ashamed. The Reverend cleared his throat, offered a prayer that landed hollow, and stepped away. Days passed, then weeks. Caleb fixed the roof of the shack without being asked. Eliza cooked what she could, her movements slow but determined. Lily laughed again, full, unguarded, the sound of a child who had stopped counting exits. There were no promises exchanged, no names given to what was growing between the two adults. It lived in shared glances, in the way Caleb always knocked before entering, in the way Eliza saved the last piece of bread for him without comment. The town watched. Slowly, its posture changed. Gossip grew tired. Consistency has a way of exhausting cruelty. One evening, lanterns were lit again, this time not in desperation, but invitation. Caleb stood before the town, voice steady, hands open. He offered Eliza work at the ranch. Shelter, partnership, not rescue, not charity. Something chosen. No one argued. Some nodded. Some looked away. Eliza lifted her chin. Lily reached for Caleb's hand, and he let her. Years later, when people asked how things changed, Caleb would say it started with a knock most folks would have ignored. That sometimes the bravest thing a person can do is open a door when the night is loud and the past is heavy. And if you're listening to this now, maybe that knock sounds familiar. Maybe you've heard it and hesitated. Just know this. Light doesn't always arrive all at once. Sometimes it comes lantern by lantern, carried by ordinary people choosing not to turn away.